My name is Henry Terpstra. I am 93 years old. I was born near Cadillac, Michigan. And after I was about 2 years old, I moved with the family to Melrose Park, Illinois. When I was a little kid, I went to River Grove Bible Church. Every Sunday we'd go to church. We couldn't stay home. My mentor, when I was young, was Arthur Ryberg. He was a graduate of Moody Bible Institute, and he was the preacher there at this church in River Grove. He started the church. I was involved in it quite a bit. I was the Sunday school leader, and I worked with him. He was besides the preacher, he was a carpenter. After school, I'd go to work with him. And he taught me most everything I knew at that time. Because of Arthur Ryberg and his wife, I was able to make my faith my own. They were the real instigators of keeping me in the straight and narrow path. In high school, I was an average student. Since the war was on, one of the courses I had to take was military. The teachers and everything knew that we were all going to end up in the war. I personally didn't know what war was, so I was happy in a way to get a boat ride and go over in a foreign country. I graduated from high school in June of 1943, and on July 11, 1943, I was in boot camp at Camp Grant in Rockford, Illinois. In boot camp and throughout the war, I was always open about my faith. Once in a great while in boot camp, I led the Sunday service. I was leading Sunday services when I was 18 years old. Most of my knowledge of the Bible was from Art and Barb Ryberg. When I had to preach on the next Sunday, I would send them a letter or call them and ask them for a topic and where it was found and some information on it that I used for the preaching of that service. After boot camp, we got on a train at Camp Grant and headed to Camp Patrick Henry, Virginia. We got hooked up with the 85th Division, which had 3 rifle companies and 1 heavy weapons company, and I was a medic assigned to the heavy weapons company. I was responsible for the minimum of 30, and the maximum would be 100 and some soldiers. We left Camp Patrick Henry, and we headed across for Casablanca, Africa. The ship had 6,000 of us soldiers on there from the 85th Division. After we got to Casablanca, immediately we started walking eastward across Africa towards Italy. So as we walked, we had to stop and clear every house out of the Italians. I was in Africa for about 3 months. Most of the Sundays, the chaplain wasn't there, so Alvin Corbin and myself would lead most of the services. After we left Africa, we went to Naples, Italy. The boot of Italy was split up in 3 sections. The 85th was on the west end. I got hooked up with the Baptist church there, the minister of that church. He asked me a couple times if I'd preach in their church, and I said, yeah. So I preached there probably about 10 times, and he translated it from English to Italian. Even though we were fighting the Italians, they were our friends. During the war, I had 3 nicknames. One of them was Doc, because I was the medic, and then the other one was Pastor, because I took care of the chaplain, and then my regular name, Hank. So I went by all 3 names. Quite often a soldier would come up and want to know, who is God? How do you know He's protecting you? I personally believe that some of the soldiers there came to God because of my example. I would pray every night for Thanksgiving that day and what might happen the next day. In service, when I would preach to the fellas, it was 95% of the time was the New Testament. And most of my subjects were out of the book of Acts and John. The best moments would be if somebody came and asked you a question about the sermon, and you could answer the question to him individually. At least you know that somebody listened. In my lifetime, I did what I thought was the Lord's will. Most of the things right then, I didn't know that it might have been the Lord's will, but later on I realized that it was the Lord's will for me to do that, or for me to go here or go there. And that happened quite a bit, I think, in battle, where you realize that you could have been killed or you could have been wounded, but the Lord was protecting you. No matter where I was honoring God. I never swore. I never drank, I never smoked. Whenever I had a chance, I spoke of the Lord.
I'm Hank's wife, Marie.
When we first met, we belonged to a roller skating club from the church. And so we'd go out quite a bit roller skating. After the war, I went back to the church. I was with Marie in Sunday school. And then when Marie Havinga and Hank Terpstra were the right age, we got married in that church. When I come home from service, we talked about me going back into the school to become a preacher. Since we were going to Christian Reformed Church, Calvin was there, college and seminary. And so we went there and talked to the president of the seminary, Dr. Krumminger. When we got through talking to him, I think my mind was made up pretty much that I couldn't do it. We felt sad because I wanted to be a preacher, but we realized it just didn't work out. So I think it was just the Lord's will that I should not go into the ministry. And then I got a job with the telephone company, and that looked like a pretty permanent job. I started as a mechanic, and we had 24 vehicles. As the years progressed, we got bigger, and I had 13 fellows working for me as mechanics. Then I would do supervision over the maintenance department. I think some people called me a preacher at the phone company because if I had any chance at all, I would preach to them. We were always involved in something. I was an elder, I was a deacon, and Marie did all the Sunday school. And then later on, Dr. Dreisma came from Iowa, and he wanted to get a school going there. So we joined him, and we worked pretty hard to try and start a Christian school. We added the part on the church and made that the school. And there was a subdivision in Lawndale, Chicago, which was all black. And they wanted to go to the Timothy Christian School, which was located in Cicero, Illinois.
They were not allowed to go to the Christian school in the Cicero area because the people in the Cicero area would not allow black people in their neighborhood.
And we in Des Plaines said, okay, they can come to our school. Now, we didn't know anything about if the city would allow it or not.
We said, we'll take them. Bring them to Des Plaines. We didn't know what the neighbors were going to say when this bus pulled up with the black children. In those days, that's the way it was. The black had to stay in their neighborhood and the white in their neighborhood. So we didn't know what was going to happen when this busload of black children came to our school. So we kind of waited out in the parking lot wondering what was going to happen, but everything went fine. The neighbors didn't say anything, and children were well behaved and played out in the parking lot. And we were determined that we would be one of the first schools to accept the black children.
And since we were a small school, when we took the black in, it doubled our enrollment, and it made us a fairly decent-sized school. In the Chicago area, none of the schools would accept black. So we were the first school that had both white and black students. We kept them until Timothy Christian School moved out to Elmhurst, Illinois.
We just felt so good being friendly with these people. We had nothing against them at all, you know, and they fit in so well with us. The women would come on the once a month or whenever we met with our ladies, and we just felt so at home with them, accepting these people and becoming friends with them. And it just seemed like that's what God wanted you to do. This was the purpose of being together.
My life, my work, it was all to the glory of God. Things worked out good. I thanked God for it. When they worked out bad, I thanked God for it, because I knew that God did it to increase my knowledge of His work.